Hi everyone, today let's talk about the PCE data. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So PCE data came in higher than expected, 2.8% from a year ago, which is not great. Personal spending rose by 0.8, personal income rose by 0.5, personal savings fell by 3.2%, down by 0.4 from February, and 2 full percentage points from a year ago, so less money in savings accounts. We've been talking about that for a little while, but this is another piece of data that says it is in fact going down. The estimate was 2.7, so it wasn't too much higher than expectations, but it did come in higher. And you can see the headline number at 2.7 versus 2.6 expected, so both numbers coming in hotter than expected, definitely not good. And surprisingly, markets generally shrugged this off, and they ended up higher on the day, so I think markets kind of assumed that it was going to come in hot, and it probably didn't move the Fed futures at all. We've been seeing hot inflation data, and this is just another piece. And we'll take a look at the Fed futures on the Sunday video. Looking at the fear and greed index, you can see we're at 42 versus 40 yesterday and a 32 last week. So we've actually climbed pretty substantially. You can see we're continuing to rally, similar to price action, but really these metrics haven't changed very much. Strength continues to move lower in extreme fear. And this was in fear yesterday. So strength actually going a little bit lower on the NYSE. Put call ratio actually moved higher into regular fear from extreme fear yesterday. And then you can see volatility continues to crater very close to that 50-day moving average at 14.86, finished at 15.06 today, and then safe haven demand still extreme fear and no change here on junk bond demand, still sitting in extreme greed. Moving over to seasonality, remember we did get this dip low a little bit late, so we're pushed to the right a little bit, but we have 2 more trading days here in April and they are expected to be bullish, especially based on the price action that we're seeing. So far still looks good for that thesis. Moving over to the earnings calendar, you can see oil and gas companies missing on the bottom line, but beat on the top. Interesting there. Oil prices have been going higher. I wonder how that's affecting them. Colgate-Palmolive beating on the top and bottom lines. Otherwise, not much for today. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see those PCE numbers coming in about 0.1% higher. Year over year expectations here on this chart was actually 2.6. So that's 0.2 higher, and then the headline number at 0.1 higher. Personal spending came in 0.2 higher as well. Inflation expectations for 1 year going a little bit higher from Michigan, also not great. And then you can see consumer expectations and consumer sentiment still pretty high, but a little bit lower than expectations. Overall didn't affect the market too much. Moving over to Max Payne, you can see a lot of options came out of the market. There was a ton of puts over here before. Still a lot of puts at 450, but you can see a lot more closer to the money. 500 ended up holding, 510 ended up holding as well as resistance. Finished between 505 and 510, pretty interesting. Max Payne was down at 503, so pretty bullish finish, not super bullish, but more towards the bullish side than what we had been seeing. Total options finished at 1.6 million, so looks okay going into the Monday session. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the SPY here, you can see we dipped in the pre-market just a little bit off of that high from the after hours yesterday. Not much, and then rallied up to that 509.77 level, rejected from there and sold off a little bit. Not a whole lot, but this is the zone that we started to talk about. You can see it here on the daily chart. 509.77, critical level, 55 EMA, 21 EMA, VWAP, everything in this zone. We already got a rally, dip low rally. So right now this still looks okay, but this initial test of this zone could spell a little bit of pullback. Momentum on the daily, however, still looks very strong off of that level. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see this is also a zone of resistance here on the 4-hour chart. Hitting that 144 EMA at 509.21, tested that level and rejected. Still holding above that 89 EMA, so structurally still bullish, and you can see those ATR stops starting to roll higher, as well as these lower ATR bands trending higher pretty substantially. So everything here still looks pretty bullish. On the 4-hour chart, just a zone of resistance here. Again, rally up, dip low, tested support, rally higher, higher high. So structurally everything still looks good. Just seems like a little bit of short-term resistance in my opinion. Moving over to the NASDAQ, you can see here on the hourly chart, same thesis, dip low, rally higher. Didn't quite hit my level at 433.24, but it did hold that 428.53 level, so everything looks good there. See how this plays on the Monday session, but right now looks okay. And again, on the daily chart, you can see that 21 EMA, VWAP, everything hanging out in that 433.24 level. Again, could be a zone of resistance, could be a slight pullback, could be a rally through. Still think we're going to test that 55 up at 436.39. Haven't done that yet, so I would expect at least a little bit more upside to come. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell was up 0.96, got right to that resistance, 198.75, and the trend line continuing to test that zone as resistance. We'll see how that plays going into the Monday. And then looking at the Dow, similarly, got just above that 382 level, closed above it just by a few pennies. So your next resistance would be the highly traded zone here at 21 EMA at 384.91. So a little bit more room there. And then you can see that 21 here on the Russell sitting at $200.34. Moving over to the Mag 7, you can see a very similar setup. Dip low, rally, breakdown, test support, rally right back to the 21 EMA. So far, this is not a higher high yet, but momentum continues to roll to bullish. It does look good. And if it gets above that 349.21 level, then we could be pushing to these all-time highs again at 367, which would absolutely take markets with it. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, you can see Apple was down 0.35, Tesla down 1.11%. These did pull back a little bit. They had a strong day yesterday when pretty much everything else was down, and then you can see tested that 170.90 level, came back down, ended up closing below yesterday. That's a bit of a bearish signal, so dip low, lower high. We'll see if this follows through into next week. And then looking at Tesla, inside candle, but holding support at 167.34. Still looks okay right here. It's above the trend line, above support, and above those short-term EMAs. Moving over to Microsoft and Google, both of these were quite positive on the day, 1.82 and 9.97% here for Google. Both of these had earnings yesterday, and they did very well. I'm going to do a longer video on Microsoft. I already did one here for Alphabet, so definitely check that out if you want to see the longer term charts for Google. Basically, everything looks super bullish. Gap higher, these are all-time highs. Did give a little bit back, got up to 176 and then fell down to 173, but not much. Everything still looks super bullish. Let's go ahead and extend out that trend line. Didn't even quite touch that, so everything still looks good. Extend that one out as well. You can see we're still holding support there, and that looks better. Momentum on both of these quite bullish. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, 0.21 to the downside for staples, still holding the level 75.40. We talked about that being a bearish candle yesterday. Sure enough, did get a little bit more down move. Momentum still hanging in there, but you would probably expect some sideways choppy price action now. So got a low, looks like either a lower high or barely a double top if you want to count it that way, but it seems like we're probably going to see some sideways action here on staples. And then looking at discretionaries, went a little bit higher here today, 0.9 to the upside, gapped through that level, 174.76, and then hit the 21 EMA. Pretty sure we talked about that yesterday. If it's going to do it, that would have been the price target. And now we need to see if it's going to hit that 55 at 179.26, and then 180.10 would be your next level. Moving over to transports and utilities, you can see transports down 1.26%. Inside candle, bearish momentum, big volume on that day. Pretty interesting to see this volume ramping higher. Let's take a closer look at that on the hourly charts, see when that volume was really coming in. Not a super clear picture. Bearish candle here, so it looked like selling here coming in at the end of the week. See if that follows through into next week. And then we got utilities breaking down from that 66.81 level. We talked about closing above it yesterday, opened up flat, and then sold straight down. Next support would be 65.75, but this looks quite bearish here. And then you got a group of EMAs sitting down at 65.13. Utility seems to be pulling back here a little bit going into next week. Moving over to breadth, this is getting a little bit mixed here. So yesterday's candle was a little bit bearish on the 20-day, but a little bit bullish here on the 50, and today we flipped. So the 20-day was bullish, got above the level, tested the 21. Want to see this push to that 51.75 level. We'll see how that looks. Right now it seems like it's going to do it, but looking at the 50-day average, gap down, tested the level, it did hold and then tried to rally up. So momentum here still looks okay. RSI breaking down just a little bit. Might see a slightly higher low here on the 50-day breadth. Maybe this pulls back a little bit too. We're not really seeing that on the charts quite yet, but maybe breadth is giving us a little bit of a forward indicator. Moving over to yields, really didn't move at all. 2-year hovering right at its most recent highs. 10-year actually down a little bit, 0.83, pulling back to that 4.66 area. That seems to be just about perfect pricing. You can see momentum is actually rolling down, and RSI is rolling down here as well. And looking at the RSI for the 2-year, similarly breakdown, retest of the SMA, maybe a breakdown there, could be interesting. Both of these seem like they might be headed lower based on indicators, but right now price action is still a bullish trend. Moving over to the dollar, we are still watching this bull flag setup. If this comes to fruition, that's going to be quite bearish for equities in my opinion, and it does seem like it might be breaking out here. On the daily chart, it's pretty much right at resistance. We'll see if it breaks down. Going into to the close. It has about 2 hours left, but if this breaks higher, this could be an absolute rocket ship up to that 108 area. And if that happens, that's going to push us above the October highs, which should pull down equities. So something to keep in mind here on the dollar. Moving over to JNK and TLT. JNK up 0.33, back above 93.67. So again, you can see that dip low, rally, higher low setup, rally. Seems like that's still intact as a thesis. And then looking at TLT, it gapped higher in doji. Nothing really crazy here. Still looks like a downtrend. It is worth noting that you have a little bit of divergence here on the RSI. Looks okay, but right now, still definitely a downtrend, and it does seem like it's going to reject off of this zone in my opinion. Moving over to volatility. Volatility fell pretty much throughout the week here. You can see move index falling. Interesting area there at the 55 EMA. And then looking at the VIX, you can see same thesis, fell for just about 5 days in a row. We're in that zone now where we could see some support. 1470 is the level. We talked about the 50 EMA on the fear and greed index being right in the same area. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, so it doesn't mean that it couldn't break right through here, certainly possible. But if it's going to bounce, this could be a zone where it would happen. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I did make money on the day. Definitely not the $2,000 that it said that I made. I think I finished around $180 yesterday, $130,180. Now I'm up close to $700, so I think I made about $500 on the day, so not bad. Definitely should have made more on a day like today, but it was a little bit hard to adjust to because of the overnight moves on earnings. But otherwise, IWM up almost $2, almost 1%. Rolled out to 179 for the Monday session for a $1.79 credit. Pretty much at max profit there after hours. Going to have to roll this to Tuesday, probably early on the Monday session. Based on the price action that we're seeing, we'll see how that plays. And then looking at the Qs here, I did sell a put for the Monday session, 92 cents down at 430, and that is falling a little bit down to 431. It was close to 432, 432.30, but it's now fallen a little bit, and you can see a little bit of a loser there. Still trying to play a little bit of defense, but not a lot. And then I have some calls here for 423 for the Tuesday session. Those are extremely deep in the money with the move that we saw. $7 credit on that. Probably continue to roll those out. We'll see how that plays. Going into the Monday, Tuesday, probably end up rolling those out to the end of the week, depending on what the price action looks like early next week. So right now, cautiously bullish going into the Monday session, but recognizing that we are at a potential zone of resistance. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the PCE data or any of the charts that we went over today. Are markets going to continue higher on Monday, or will we see a pullback? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.